I'll tell me when. Okay. I'll get my arm out of there.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the virtual book launch and celebration of To Win, Play Boldly, the story of Dave Huber's life. To introduce myself, I'm Krista. I'm one of Dave and Shirley's 3 daughters. And I'm going to be spending a little bit of time this evening kicking off the journey that we've taken from the beginning to end of To Win, Play Boldly. First, I want to thank you for joining us this evening for this very special event. This has been a project that's been in the works for a long time, so we're really excited to be here together with you tonight. I recognize that this virtual book launch is a new concept for most of us, if not all of us. So I just want to explain how this evening is going to go. So for all of you who have logged in virtually, I want you to recognize that there's roughly 150 to 200 people who joined us here online to watch this launch of To Win, Play Boldly. For instance, I have my uncle and aunt, Tom and Mary, out in California who have logged in and are watching. I have my cousins, Tom and Val Hubers, who are watching from the mountains in Montana. My parents have their lifelong friends, Irv and Sandy Walhoff, who are watching from warm and dry Arizona. And then we have their lifelong friends, Jay and Greta Renzenbrink, who are joining from my dad's hometown of Pease, Minnesota, where it's probably about 0 degrees right now. In addition to all of you that have logged on live to join us, there's 18 people in this room that you can't see but are very close to me, just outside the other side of this computer here. We invited those that have been really working intimately on this project with my dad and have had a really significant role in his life here to join us for this live. And then we will have a special celebration dinner after this. To tee off the event, I do want to mention one piece about this virtual launch. And you should see a live web chat feature on your computer. And on that area, you are able to write questions and comments to my dad that he will address and answer during his speech. Now, I do want to mention that that is something everyone else who has logged into this virtual launch can also see. So if you've read this book and you're a little upset that Dave didn't let a certain skeleton out of the closet, probably not the place you want to mention it, because you're going to have about 200 of his friends and family seeing that. However, his cell phone is always close by, so send him a text and say, this is not a true memoir, and we can go from there. So I want to start off here and provide a little bit of a timeline for how this story began and how we got to this place, as I'd mentioned earlier. So roughly 4 years ago, in December of 2011, my sisters and I were talking over my dad's Christmas present. As you might guess or know, my dad can be a difficult person to buy for because he has an abundance of things and he's quite picky about the things that he likes to have. So typically when we ask him what he'd like to have, we get these 2 responses. I would like a pair of slippers and I would like a robe. Well, after giving my dad those gifts for about 10 years, we thought we really don't want to give him a slipper and a robe any longer. We wanted to be more creative. So what we decided to do is have some conversation about a really unique and exciting gift to give to my dad. As my sisters and I were conversing about this, we realized that within a year's time, my dad had mentioned to all 3 of us that he has had a thought about writing a book. We thought, you know, that's a really great thing that he has on his bucket list. And how could the 3 of us help see that come to fruition? So we tucked the slippers aside, we put the robe back in the closet, and we said we're going to create some kind of rough book that we're going to present my dad for Christmas. And that's just what we did. I'm pretty sure it looked more like a scrapbook of his kids with a really rough title and a lot of stickers. But our intent was to let him know that we supported him in the journey of writing his story. We were unsure exactly what this gift would entail, but we just knew that it was something that he felt was important. And as we thought about it more, it had more relevance to us, and it was incredibly important for us to see him finish this also. The next step in that process was to reach out and find an author. So my mother-in-law happens to be Janice Haney, and I know there will be at least a number of you who know Janice Haney. Well, Janice has worked with my dad and been friends with my dad for a number of years. And Janice Haney also knows more people than anybody that I could ever know. And so if anybody was going to find an author, it was going to be Miss Janice Haney. So Janice quickly said the name of Jeff Moravec. Well, that name certainly rang a bell. Jeff had worked with my dad a number of years prior at IDS American Express, and he was someone who wrote a number of articles for IDS American Express in his time there. So we called Jeff and gave him a little tidbit about what we were thinking and said, would you at least be open to meet us for lunch? Which Jeff, of course, said, I'd be happy to. So the five of us, along with Jeff, sat down and had some lunch, had a lot of conversation about would this work, would this fit in our lives? And Jeff said, I think it's a go. Dave said, I think it's a go. And so the journey began. Jeff started that first year by interviewing a lot of our family and close friends. He spent a lot of time in Pease, Minnesota, probably more than you ever thought you would, Jeff. And a lot of time with dear friends that had been friends for a lifetime with my parents to try and really understand who is this man, Dave Hubers, and what is his story that he's wanting to share. About 1 year into the project, we did hit a significant bump in the road, a bump that caused us to pause significantly and wonder if we'd ever really be able to complete this project. My sisters and I received a phone call from my dad's good friend, Bob Eaton, who's here with us this evening, in November of 2012. Bob tried to keep a very cheery voice, but on the other line was telling my sisters and I that my dad was not doing well and he was in the hospital. Our initial reaction is we were so relieved that Bob and Connie were close and there with my parents. But the phone calls that came after were becoming more concerning, and we had a number of doctors calling us three girls and saying, it's imperative that you get on a plane and get down here as soon as possible. I remember asking, is 24 hours okay? And they said, no, you need to get down here right now. So Lisa, Stephanie, and I got on a plane as quickly as we could. On that plane ride down, the 3-hour plane ride down actually ended up feeling probably like 12 hours. And I know many of you have experienced those kind of phone calls yourself, and it's a really difficult time where you're processing many things. So as I'm riding down along with my sisters, we're hugging, we're crying, we're praying, we're bargaining, we're trying to be hopeful. And the other thing that we're doing is reflecting on if when we get to Florida things aren't good, you know, how are we going to cope with that? What are we going to do? What was on Dad's bucket list that he didn't get done? And something that came up for all of us was his book. And we knew we had started, but we knew we had nowhere near the material to be able to finish. So I made a little bargain on that, or promise on that plane ride down, that if I could just have a little more time with my dad. I didn't know if I'd be granted a day. I didn't know if I'd be granted a week. I was hoping for a year or two that we could get this project done. I vowed that we would see this project through, along with my two sisters who are sitting just alongside me here. So over those two year, when we had to put the project on delay, my dad had 2 prosthetic knees put in. He had a GI bleed, which required 11 blood transfusions. He went into sepsis. He had a heart attack. He had quadruple bypass. He had a knee out for 12 weeks and a knee back in. And then we were still trying to determine during this time if he could ever have that right shoulder repaired that was causing him so much pain after 50 years of overuse. Well, for those of you who know my dad or have read To Win, Play Boldly, he certainly likes to challenge numbers and take some numerical risks. So he took that cat with 9 lives theory, tossed it out the window, and said, I think I can make it to 13. And so here we are today on, I think, life number 14. So after the dust settled and his health stabilized, Dave, Shirley, Jeff, and I sat down again at their table in Minnesota. We looked at each other and we sincerely asked my dad, do you have the energy and the desire and the drive to want to finish this book? You've had a really rough 9 months, and we either need to go forward quickly or we need to just say this, you know, isn't the right time and maybe put it aside. To which Dave said very quickly, yes, let's go. So Jeff, Shirley, and I rolled up our sleeves, grabbed a few packs of Diet Pepsi, grabbed a couple bottles of vodka, and without hesitation, we knew we'd be up till 1 a.m. and a lot of nights, Jeff, and we went to town. We said, we're gonna get this book done no matter what we need to do. As we prepared to get started again, I did ask my dad that evening, what do you think pulled you through so much that so few others could survive? In his life and in his book, as you've read, he references the fact that God has had a plan for him on a number of occasions. And I wanted to know what he felt God's plan was for him in this circumstance. So I asked him why he felt like he was still here with us and what was the plan for him. And my dad quickly sat back, thought, and said, you know, I think I have more to give. And that still chokes me up now, because anybody who knows my dad knows he's an incredibly generous man. And in my heart, in my mind, I'm thinking, here's a man who has done so much giving. And yet, after a 9-month stretch of so many rough roads, that was still what was on his mind, that he wanted to give more. I didn't understand exactly in what capacity he wanted to give. If he was thinking he wanted to give more time to nonprofits, offering more scholarships for disadvantaged students, more board work, giving to the church. That was the piece that I thought might take some time for me to really understand what he meant by that. But as time went on and our project continued to evolve, I realized that he was giving a more personal gift to me, maybe something that we didn't recognize at the table that day, but has come to fruition. And that's the gift of time. If you recall from the book, I was that daughter who went to the wastebasket and pulled out my dad's paperwork just so I could sit by him as he did his paperwork and have time by him. So my stack was about this big that I could muster out of the garbage, and his stack was about this big, but I was very determined to sit by him and sign papers and read papers and do whatever I could do just to sit by his side. The really awesome thing for me now in being so involved with this To Win, Play Boldly project is the words that you see on the paper in that book. My dad and I certainly spent a lot of time side by side, but we had a lot of time that was just face to face, and that was a gift. That was something that I will cherish forever. For our family, it's certainly a gift to have my dad's story as a family heirloom, something that will be cherished by many generations for years to come. So with that, I would like everybody to pick up their beautiful bottle of champagne that they have received, courtesy of the Afton House Inn. Should look something like this. This was shipped from Love by Dave Jarvis at Afton House Inn in about minus 20 degree weather. We were not certain if it was going to make it to everybody, but I believe that it has. So if everybody who's interested in joining us for a toast can open up their bottle of champagne, as we are doing here in our room in Naples, Florida, I would like to make a toast to Win, Play Boldly. Given the last few years, today feels just shy of a miracle. So I'd like to propose a toast to my parents' amazing life, to all of my family and friends who've gathered together tonight, who've all played an incredibly important part of creating my dad's story, To Win, Play Boldly. Cheers. With that, I will be introducing Jeff Moravec. Jeff Moravec, as you heard a little bit about earlier, is the author of my dad's book. And Jeff, who is here with us this evening, we will be forever grateful to you for capturing my dad's life and story in the way that you did. You have captured his voice and put that in that book in a way that I would have never expected could be done. So from our family to you, we want to say thank you.
Thank you, Krista. I want to thank my wife, Kelly, who did the narration on that video. Thank you. And I do, first of all, before I say anything else, want to address a rumor, sort of a nasty rumor, that I intentionally delayed the publication of the book so we'd have to have this in Florida in January. Not true. Since I'm a writer, not a speaker, I'm going to read from my notes, and I apologize for that. But I'd like to thank Dave and his family for the opportunity to work on this book. It was a pleasure. It was fun. It was rewarding. It was not without its challenges. Right, guys? But we did it. And for those of you who may think these books write themselves, let me say this. When I start a writing project, I first of all open a new email folder that I keep only the emails that I think are important to the project. Not all of them, only those that I think are important. When I last looked, the folder for this book had about 600 emails in it. So we went through a few drafts, didn't we, Dave?
We did.
I was asked before this event, what does it take for the guy doing my job to make a book like this work? Well, that's easy. It has to capture the voice and the personality of the author. That's not always easy. This book needed to be Dave in his voice. I worked with Dave at IDS in the late 1980s when Dave was CFO and I was doing the earnings report for the company. So I knew him, but not the way I would have to know him for this book. For this, I got to know him through hours of interviews, as Krista talked about, but maybe just as importantly, I got to know him through the eyes of his family. I also spent many hours with his wife, his daughters, and his siblings. It was work that was essential to making sure that Dave's voice and personality ended up on the written page. Beyond that, what made this project fun and rewarding was that Dave and his family were unfailingly gracious and accommodating throughout the entire process. They were warm, they were friendly, they were a joy to work with. A long writing project like this can be a chore, but because of who Dave and his family are, this was not. This was an honor to be part of. In one of my first emails to Dave about the project, I wrote this: I know this is important to you, and I know we'll end up with a finished product that you and your family can be proud of. And I think we did that. Thank you for allowing me to be part of it. Now I'd like to bring up Shirley.
I'm Shirley, as all of you know, and I am David's wife. And Dave and I are thankful for the many blessings we have received in our 50 years of marriage. Being Dave, a bold worker also, had a very successful career. We were blessed with 3 beautiful daughters and 3 great sons-in-laws, and they blessed us with 9 wonderful grandchildren. Dave has had many health challenges, which began when he was 15, in which he was in a car accident and lost his arm. Since then, he has had a quadruple bypass and several surgeries on both of his knees. As a result, he has very little use of his legs. We are thankful we have the opportunities to spend our winters in Naples with many dear friends. And we wish each of you a happy and healthy 2015.
Ready to go. Okay. Hey, I'm the Grand Poobah. Let there be no mistake. But I have to tell you, this virtual book launch is something I've never done before. It's probably the only one I'll ever do, and it's probably the last one I'll ever do. I had a friend that told me that once you do an autobiography like this, there's no turning back. You have one chance at it, and if you don't get it right, you can't go back. And I think based upon the feedback that I've gotten from all of you, it appears to be a very successful launch. I've gotten many emails congratulating us on the book and expressing their appreciation for what they were able to glean from it, and also a number of people who've said to me, you know, this is something that I've been thinking about doing for a long period of time, and I've just never gotten around to doing it, and now maybe is the time for me to take another look at this and launch something similar to what you did. So hopefully that may be one of the outcomes. Before I get into what I wanted to talk about, I thought we should probably do a bubbly check and see how we're doing on our champagne. We should be about halfway through the bottle by now. And if we're not, or worse yet, if it's already gone, then we got to start all over. So I don't know, I had a glass here with some bubbly, I don't know if it's gone. But I want to, there we go, thank you. Drink to all of you as well, and fill up your glasses again, and we'll proceed. I want to start with issuing some thanks to a few people. The first one is to Jeff. Jeff, as you've already been told, and I had a long working relationship at American Express, and it was because of that relationship that I think this whole project worked as well as it did. He knew who I was. He knew what some of my strengths and weaknesses were, and we worked really well together. And having somebody at my side like Jeff was a major asset and a key reason for the success that we've experienced. So I want to thank you, Jeff, for all of your help. Also want to thank Tina. Tina's the social media mogul here, and it's her experience with this technology and the marketing involved with a project like this that has allowed us to be able to launch this virtual book. Thirdly, I'd like to recognize an individual by the name of David Jarvis. David was the guy who packaged everything, purchased all the wine, and sent it all out and tried to make sure that everybody got theirs on time, which was a major challenge with your dealing with 175, 200 people. I know in some cases he actually ended up driving his vehicle out to their residences to make sure that they received it on time. So thank you, David, for doing that for us. David runs a restaurant and a wine shop in Afton, Minnesota. And last but not least, I want to thank Krista, our youngest daughter. Krista was really the driving force behind making sure that we continued to plow ahead. There were times when we got discouraged, times when we got sidetracked, and Krista was always the one that brought us back to where we needed to be. And I want to thank her for continuing to make sure that we charged ahead and getting this project done. In thinking about what I was going to try and talk about tonight, I tried to put myself in your place and said, if I read this book, what is it that I would be interested in knowing? And there were 4 questions that came out or jumped out at me that I said, hey, this is something that I ought to probably talk about. The first is, why did I write the book? Secondly is, what was the process like to write a book like this? I had never done it. I suspect most of you have never done it. And so I want to talk a little bit about what that involved, what that entailed. And then I want to talk about what I personally got out of doing this, writing the book, because there were some major benefits to me as well. And then last but not least, what do I hope that my future readers, or not future readers, current readers, get out of this book, as well as future readers. And so those are the 4 questions that I will try to address. In terms of why did I write this book, quite frankly, I had an itch that needed to be scratched. And it goes back at least 5 years ago. I had this sense that, given my life experiences, that I had something to share with other people that would be beneficial and useful to them. I had nothing to go on. I had nothing that I could refer to from my great grandparents that would tell me what they were involved with when they were our ages. And there was a vacuum there. There's a void there by not being able to have something in writing that I could understand and relate to. And I decided that this is not the way I wanted to leave it for our children and great-grandchildren, but rather that they would have something in writing that would explain who we were, what we stood for, and what was important in our life. So the primary purpose and the primary audience for this book was, in fact, our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren who will hopefully benefit from reading this book and understanding some of the values and the principles that we live by, and that it will influence their lives as well. So that's why I wrote the book. It was really the fact that I had not had something like this from my great-grandparents, and there was a void. I also wanted to make sure that we left something for our children, great-grandchildren, so that they would have something to put their head around. As far as the process is concerned, it is a lot of hard work. I'll be perfectly honest. It is not easy. Even though the book it's relatively short, it's an easy read. It's not easy to get to this point. I refer to the point that Jeff made a while ago. There's like 600 emails that went back and forth. And I don't know how many hundreds of hours that went into this. People reading, cross-checking, rereading, making sure that everything was captured. It just takes a lot of time. I would suggest that if any of you are contemplating doing something like this, that you hire a ghostwriter, because somebody like Jeff was invaluable to me, as I explained to you a while ago. One of the things you also need to consider if you're going to go through this process is that you got to be prepared to be open and honest with yourself, and willing to share, which is not always easy to expose your private life, and let people get under the tent and understand what were some of the things that drove you and influenced you as you were growing up. So you got to be willing to open up yourself. And finally, your feedback over the past few weeks has been very positive and encouraging, and reaffirming that the reasons that we had for going through this exercise were in fact valid, and that was very, very reaffirming to us. What did I get out of this? First of all, it forced me to do sort of a self-analysis or self-assessment of who I was and who I am, and reflect on what were the things that I was able to do that were strengths of mine, and overcome adversity and not focus on the negatives. It's very hard to do when you're going through a deep hole, but it's really critical that one is able to do that. And one of the things that I realized in writing this book was that the friends and the family that I had that were supporting my efforts were invaluable to me, and were really one of the key reasons that I was able to deal with adversity. I think another thing that I realized when I wrote this book is that I really came from very humble beginnings. I was not given anything. Most of you have not been given anything. Most of you have accomplished what you've achieved by going through a lot of hard work, and that was certainly the case in our situation as well. And going through those times really helps shape your values and what you view as being important. For example, making sure that that you have to work for what it is that you want. It's not given to you. How you lead people, how you respect people who are your elders and people who are in authority, whether that be policemen, teachers, and the like. It also told me the importance of friends. I didn't realize, I guess, until I put this book together, how many really good, strong friendships I had. And these were not friendships that are just social friendships, which many are, and I value that. But these are friendships with people who I could count on when I went through difficult times. Okay, it was the Bob Eatons of this world who was there to help us when we didn't have anybody else here and we needed some help. That's invaluable. And it's those friendships that you can rely upon that make the difference. At least I felt they made the difference in our lives, and why I believe that having those friendships is so critically important. It also told me the importance of mentors. A lot of times we have mentoring relationships and don't quite realize that they are mentoring relationships until it's over. My strongest mentor was Harvey Golub. I worked for Harvey for, I don't know, 15 years, thereabouts, both as a CFO and as running part of the business at American Express. And we developed a very close and personal relationship. And Harvey was probably one of the brightest, most strategic individuals that I knew, and was also a great leader. And I learned a lot of things from him that I was able to use as I continued to progress in my career. So I would stress the importance of having mentoring relationships. I would also emphasize the importance of community and the need to give back. This is something that, again, I got out of my career, and as I reflected back when I was writing the book, was really important. It was important to us as a family. It was important to us in shaping the values for our kids, and I think that the importance of philanthropic efforts are absolutely critical. We've all been extremely well blessed, and we have a responsibility, in my estimation, to share that benefit with people who are less fortunate than we are. And so that's one of the other learnings that came out of this for me. The last is the one I already talked about a bit, and that is how we deal with adversity. I had my share of forces that I had to deal with. I'm sure all of you have had your burdens as well. The thing that you have to focus on to pull out of those kinds of situations is, what is it that I can do to improve upon my situation and leverage my strengths, and not dwell on what you can't control and those things that hurt you in the past. So I would just say that focusing on the opportunity that you have rather than what you don't have is also something that helped me a lot in my life. Lastly, I want to talk about what I hope that other readers get from this book. My target audience for the book, as I mentioned earlier, is really our grandchildren and great-grandchildren. They're the ones that I hope get the real benefit, the most benefit from this book. By passing on a legacy, and as I said, that is something that I missed when I was growing up. There was nothing to refer to that told me how my grandparents and great-grandparents worked and how they or what their values were and what they thought was important in life. So that's something that I hope our grandchildren and great-grandchildren get from this book. I won't know if that worked or not. In fact, I will never know whether that worked. Because it's not gonna happen for probably another 20 years. And I'm not sure that in fact, I know I'm not gonna be here 20 years from now. But I hope that that's something that they benefit from. The secondary audience is all of you. You are very close friends. And all of you have had issues that you've had to deal with. All of you have had major accomplishments. This book is not about focusing on accomplishments. This book is about doing the right thing and doing those things that are important in terms of strengthening and developing relationships. So as I said before, if any of you are sitting on the fence, thinking about this is something you'd like to do but haven't really dealt with it and proceeded with it, I would strongly encourage you to do it. It's been a great experience for me, and it's one that I will never regret having taken on. Let me just close with a golf story. Because I think it manifests some of the things I've been trying to convey to you. I didn't play golf until I was in my 30s. In fact, when I was growing up in high school, I didn't know what golf was. They never had golf in Malacca High School. And so this was all new to me until I started my career, and people were golfing, and there was golf on TV. And so I thought, let's try it out. I love sports, as I said in the book, and I was always looking for opportunities to do something different. And what I found is that the game of golf is a very unique game. It's unique in the sense that because of the handicap system, you create a level playing field, all right? It's the only sport that I know of that allows you to do that. So here I am with one arm, trying to compete with people who have handicaps that are half of what mine were, and I found I could do it. I mean, obviously I had a higher score, but my net score was competitive. And I got a lot of satisfaction out of being able to do that. As a way of showing what that meant to me, when I was working, we sponsored a seniors golf tournament in Sarasota, Florida, and we would get some of the best senior golfers to play in the event. And one year, I asked to be paired with Arnie Palmer, and they said, that's fine. So it was Arnie and myself and 2 or 3 other guys, and we got to the first tee, and here were roughly 3,000 people sitting around the bowl of the first tee. And it scared the heck out of me. Here I am trying to just get it out there 150 yards straight, and these people are hitting the ball 200-300 yards. But Arnie teed off first, hit a great shot. The others teed off, and then it was my turn. And I was literally shaking. I really was. And fortunately, God was looking over me, because he gave me a good shot, and I put it out there about 200 yards straight down the middle. And the next morning in the Sarasota Gazette, the headline was, Palmer draws crowd, Amex CEO draws applause. So that was my ultimate reward, the day I could compete with Arnie on front page of the paper. So with that, let me stop and just simply say to win, to all of you, play boldly. You got to take chances. You got to take risks, and if you do, and you do it intelligently, you'll be a winner. You really will. So thank you. With that, let me turn it over to,
We have one question, Dan.
question.
One question that's here. And if anybody else has additional questions, they can feel free to ask them. So you wanted to keep this lighthearted and a little fun, and so have your son-in-laws, okay? Now, for any of you who have not seen Dave Huber's look, I'm pretty sure I'm about to get it right now. So look and watch. And by the way, I think I might hold the record, but if any of you'd like to challenge me and ask this question, you sure can. Your three son-in-laws, Tom, Keith, and Travis, would like.
They want to know who's number one.
Who's number one? It wasn't in the book, and that's the whole reason they read the book. They thought one of them was going to get their own chapter, so they'd really like to know who's number one. And you can plead the fifth.
I think that's the smart thing to do. I got three great son-in-laws. I really do.
Safe
And
answer.
And I love all three of them. And one of the things that we've been able to do that I personally feel I get a lot of satisfaction over is the fact that these are three guys who really didn't know each other very well. They all have different interests. And by going and doing things like golfing trips and fishing trips and so on, they've gotten to know each other and they've built relationships, which I think is critically important. Because after we're gone, it's going to be dependent upon our daughters and their husbands to continue the legacy of the Hubers family. And by doing that, my hope is that will continue and that they'll all be number one.
That is a great answer. Good job. Well said.
Okay, let me turn it over to Tina for a closing.
First of all, on behalf of the entire family, we just want to thank you for attending and being here live. It looks like we have over 90 live viewers, so really exciting. As most of you obviously are on the website right now, and after this is done broadcasting, you'll see the website will change over and there will be a contact form on the bottom. So some of you have had interest in grabbing some more books, and they're not for sale, but we will be able to ship them out if you're interested. So if you want to fill out that contact form on the bottom, we'll be able to get you an extra book. So thank you so much for attending, and we hope you have a great night.